Thanks. Right, good morning. We are going to kick off today with the most interesting session of today, so it's good that you are here. We are going to talk about XR technologies in the school system, a very important topic that Benjamin and I have been talking about for already years. It started very small at the first VR days of the Netherlands even. Then it was not a prominent topic, and we see it growing and growing because the technology becomes more interesting, but especially there are more and more people that do interesting projects and integrating it actually in the school system. So we invited a couple of interesting people that will tell you a little bit about XR in schools, XR in education today. I will be moderating the session. I'm Lisette Vonk. I'm working at the Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences here in Amsterdam. I'm leading there an XR lab where I'm doing educational renewal projects with the students, but I'm also making XR prototypes with the students. I won't be talking today, or I will be talking today, but especially about the speakers that are already waiting to give their talk to you. What I want to mention before we kick off this session is that there is an exhibition on the first floor. So for everyone who's here, take the elevator down to the ground floor, because I was informed that the elevator is not going to the first floor, so go to the ground floor and then follow the signs for the exhibition, because it is very interesting to check that out as well. All right, we are going to start this session with Dorletta, and she can probably pronounce her name better than I can. Dorletta Garcia Melero and Stefano Marneri. Yes, all right. They are here from Vicom Tech. They did a project, or they are running a project at the moment around augmented reality in the school system, and they will tell you everything about it. So please welcome me on the stage.
Thanks a lot, Lisette. So, hi everyone. Thanks a lot, Lisette, for the introduction. And today, no, like this? Sounds good. Okay. So today we are going to talk about Arete, which is a research and innovation action project funded by the EU, which is about creating AR technologies for education. So I'm sharing the presentation with my colleague Dorletta. And let me see if this works. Okay, so it's going to be a very broad introduction, so I'm not going into the specifics of the project. Our colleague Sulin will give some more details later. And in the Laval virtual world, we will have 3 colleagues which will give more details about that. Thanks. Better like this. So yeah, the presentation will be very broad. We are going to talk a little bit about the scope of the project, the objectives, a little bit about the technological toolset that we are developing, and also about the pilots where we will evaluate what we will be doing. So I'm going to skip this part since we were already introduced. And yeah, a quick overview of the project is a fairly small project with 10 partners across the EU. There are not only university, but also research institutions like ours, and some SMEs from Ireland, which are the ones which are actually developing the technological content brought to the schools. The consortium is quite widespread. There are partners from Italy, from Spain, from the Netherlands, and from the UK and Ireland. The project is just past halfway through. It will last until the end of April 2023, and it started at the end of 2019. So the scope of the project, as I was saying, the first thing that we want to achieve is to support the European efforts in interactive technologies. As I think you are well aware, AR and VR, or extended reality technologies in general, are going to be a big part of the technological effort of the next few years. So we want to have a big push into that. We want to increase the innovation capacity by enabling other users, other stakeholders to create efficiently and in an easy way AR application in general, and you want all the people to be able to use these technologies in general in schools, in specific for the project, but also providing the tools to bring that to other sectors as well. And finally, we want these AR tools to be highly usable. The big problems that we see now is that AR takes a while in order to be able to use it, and we want to apply some approaches that simplify the usage at school, and we want to increase the TRL of all the technology that we are developing. And regarding the objectives, well, the first one, the most important, is to develop new content and evaluate how effective it is. We want to apply human-centered design in order to improve the UX and UI of every AR application that we are going to build. Very important, we want to test how effective it is what we are building. So we are running 3 pilots across the whole of Europe to see that what we are developing actually is useful for students. And finally, well, this is one example. We want to communicate and disseminate everything that we are doing in the project to the broader audience in Europe. Very briefly, the project is structured into 7 work packages. I'm going to briefly talk about work package 3, about the technological toolset, and 4, the user-centered design. My colleague Sulin later will talk about the interactive AR for positive behavior intervention and support. And my colleague Dorleta, in a couple of minutes, will talk about the 3 pilots that we are running to test these technologies. Regarding the toolset, you don't have to watch this, just a fancy image that I put there. But we are developing a lot of software into several libraries. I think there are 3 things that are actually very important. The first one is that we are creating an authoring tool. This authoring tool will allow teachers or developers to simplify the creation of AR experiences. So even if you are not an expert developer, even if you are not a designer, through this authoring tool and through the usage of 3D models in a public repository, you can, in a matter of half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, create something that can be used by students in school without the need to be technologically savvy. The second thing is that we want AR applications to be multi-user. The typical way a student or anybody uses an AR application is through his mobile phone or with HoloLens, and it's typically a single user experience. At schools, it is important to collaborate. The students learn better when they are engaged in a group, so we want that our software enables communication between the users, share the same experience in the 3D world that they see through the application. And finally, we also want to make it a safe environment, so we want the teachers to be able to see how the students are progressing, how the students are using the application in an, well, anonymized way to protect privacy, but also to grant some control to the teachers. Very briefly, the user-centered interactive design, also very important. These efforts are led by our colleague Philo at Durham University in the UK. And what we are doing is to check that the way we develop application follows some sensible approaches. We want to apply the human-computer interaction tools also to AR, and so we want to improve the general user experience of the users of the tool, and we want to include some participatory design environment into the way we create the application themselves. So regarding the pilot, as I was saying, there are 3 pilots, and I will leave my colleague Dorleta to introduce them.
Thanks, Stefano. So as he said, within the Arete project, there are 3 pilots. I will go now stopping in each of them. But what is common for the 3 of them is that interactive collaborative AR content will be used. Also, standardized tests will be used within the 3 pilots. And last but not least, an impact assessment will be made at the end of the 3 pilots. So regarding pilot 1, it's centered in the use of augmented reality to facilitate the teaching English literacy skills. It is led by an Irish SME partner, which is Wordsworth Learning. And the aim is to make both teaching and learning English literacy skills in an easier and more efficient way. Therefore, the target are the English classes, but more specifically, those students who have difficulties in acquiring the language. The methodology is to test a course, an augmented reality course that is pre-made for students that will improve their English literacy skills. And it started in September 2021 with 19 teachers involved. Regarding pilot 2, it's centered in the use of augmented reality as an efficient tool for information retention for STEM, which stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The leader partner is once more Clever Books and enrich SME. And the aim is to prove how efficient AR tools are for the retention of information in the STEM subjects. More specifically, it is centered on geography and geometry. So the scope and the main target is geometry and geography students, which has made this pilot to be more widespread. It's now running from September 2021 too. And it's running in 10 different countries, and it's testing different materials such as books, software, maps in 8 different languages. There are currently over 150 teachers involved. As for Pilot 3, I won't stop long here because my colleague Suiling will give you far more details. I will only say that it's centered on the augmented reality for promoting positive behavior intervention support, PBIS. And is led by CNR and SVU, and Suiling will give a far more deep presentation on this. And then lastly, for the expected impacts, we have identified mainly 5 expected impacts divided like in 4 groups. So the first one is the identification of the impact that these teaching tools have among the teachers and how they are used. The second one is the transfer of the technology developed to the industry. So we have to develop technology that later will be used by the industry partners. Then it has to be assessed how well it works. So after the pilots, it will be an impact assessment will be made, as we said before, to see how well AR works as a learning tool. And then in 4th place, we've got different standards like Sensenelec and ARLEM that will be worked upon so that they can be further used in the future. And that's all from our part, so thank you very much for listening.
For a sec. Are there any questions from the audience? And then it's quiet. It's like asking my class if there are any questions after a presentation. Yes.
Hi, Roger Chai from Immersive. Are there any first interesting results where you say, hey, that's what we hoped?
So the pilot starting in September, but we do not have yet enough data to draw conclusions. Apart from this, we already published the first version of the ARLEM standard, which is about the definition of learning experiences in AR, so that can be considered part of the results. But apart from that, we have publications, scientific publications, and draft of another standard. But for the results, I think we will have to wait September 2022, or more realistically, end of 2022.
Also, you can follow us in our social media to stay tuned and know more about the results.
Thanks.
I was intrigued because you said in the beginning with the very complicated map that we didn't have to understand, luckily, that you were building up a system that it was also easier to create, for a teacher to create the AR experiences. Is that part of the project, or is that something that you just find important?
No, this is actually a core part of the project. We are developing. Yeah, sorry about that. We are developing a software library which is called Mirage XR. The efforts are led by the Open University in the UK. And the idea is that the teachers will be able directly in an AR environment, like wearing HoloLens, for example, or on their PC, if they do prefer to do that, to access an online free repository of 3D models and define a learning experience. So for example, I don't know, you want to teach how to measure the volume of some geometric solids. So you can grab this content, you can display or define the interaction of the students with these objects and define the expected results across, I don't know, an experience of 15 minutes. And once you define that, you will create a a text document that you can share and upload to the school Moodle repository, for example, and every teacher that has access to the Moodle can download this experience and provide this to the student. And the idea, the goal, the dream is that without being a software developer, you can create this experience and having it available in a matter of 1 hour or so. That's the main dream of the
That's
project.
the dream.
Exactly.
Yeah. I can imagine that there are some teachers in the audience or maybe online that are very interested in that they wonder now, can I use the database because I would love to use it? Is that something that is already accessible or somewhere that they can find more information about it?
Thanks a lot for this question, because actually there are not 3 pilots, but we are defining a 4th one, which is exactly about letting the teachers try and use this tool. So if you check the website of the project or get in touch with us, we can give you the details so you can just sign up for this. And once we'll have enough people involved, we will send the details to organize sessions about how to use this tool. And yeah, then the idea is to making it available to the wide community of teachers across Europe.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, you heard maybe her name already from our next speaker, because that's Suilin Gui. She is from the VU. Yeah, you can already join me. Then I can already see you while I'm introducing you. She's working at the VU University and the Windesheim University of Applied Sciences here in the Netherlands. She's doing one of the pilots or one of the experiments in the Arete project. She's focused on, she's a psychologist from her background, and she is part of the Arete project. She is focusing on behavioral patterns in school and using their AR technology for that. And they are opening the PowerPoint as we speak.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your introduction, Lisette. Is it, yeah, thank you. I can't see anything, but good morning, everybody. When you're in the spotlight, you can't see anything, but okay. Thank you, Benjamin, for inviting us and that we can say something about our project. I think Stefano and Dorletta made an excellent introduction, so I'm now going to dive into the Pilot 3 project. And the catchy title would be Catch Them While They're Good. So you're just wondering, why did I choose this title? Well, I think you're listening very quietly and respectfully to me. So I'm a school person, so if you were in my classroom, I would give you a token. So because you are so happily listening to me and taking in what I'm saying. So the Pilot 3 is about positive behavior support, which says that if you want to have a positive and good school climate and a safe climate for students, you need to reinforce them. So that's why the title is Catch Them While They're Good. Can I just do this? Yes. And you told me already a little bit about me. So the title of this 10-minute presentation is Elevating Students' Behavior Management, and I already told you about how I would interact with you all if you would be in my classroom. Is this better? Elevating students' behavior management and self-regulatory skills via augmented reality within the school-wide positive behavior support framework. I'm going to tell you about what is this, SWW, what is this? Dutch, but okay. But here we go with this presentation. Okay, so we know, and you've all been pupils, you've all had a school experience, how sometimes it is difficult to be in a classroom full of rowdy 30-plus students in a classroom. And whether you are more subdued or more extrovert or whatever, it is always difficult to cope or interact with your peers, especially when you're in your teenager years. So, and teachers find this very difficult too. I'm a teacher trainer. I used to work as a school psychologist. You see here teachers sometimes, most of the teachers I work with find it very difficult to do so, to work with challenging behavior. And they often feel overwhelmed, and sometimes they leave the profession in dealing with and managing these challenging behavior. So we use, in the Netherlands at least, 300 plus primary schools use the school-wide positive behavior framework, and it's an American framework. And over there in the States, more than 300,000 schools use it. Here, and 10 years ago, we brought it to Europe, so in the Netherlands, and throughout Europe, we also use it with 20 plus countries. And it's basically a problem-solving framework. You can use it in your schools with any other socio-emotional framework you're using in your schools. I'm not sure whether teachers are here, and then you are probably familiar with how to deal with socio-emotional behavior within a school policy. And what we do is build multi-tiered systems of support and teach and reinforce expected behavior. So this expected behavior, you will say, how do you do this? We know that you cannot take a pill or something or to learn and behave well. So we cannot make students learn and behave. We can only create environments that create the likelihood that students learn and behave. And these environments are guided by a core curriculum and are implemented with consistency and fidelity. That means that we see behavior as any other subject in a school, like geography or languages or mathematics. We say you have to teach behavior explicitly, especially for the children who need this the most. Okay, these are the systems of support. I'm not going to delve into it deeply, but what we do, it takes 7 years for a school to install these kinds of systems, that we first start with the practices, so teach and practice. You teach the expected behavior you all agree upon in a school system, and then you practice it via modeling. And there comes in the augmented reality. So the expected behavior is based and built around values. You see here a picture of a school in London. We work with 10 London schools, working with PBIS, and hopefully they will work with the AR2 in a later stage, so next year. And you see here that they have formulated values. So we are respectful, we are safe, we are responsible. You do this with the whole school community. So you do this with the teachers first, because the adults are the worst persons who have challenging behavior, by the way. And then and then so you first formulate the values with your teachers, and we did this with the project last week too in San Sebastian with my lovely colleagues Dorletta and Stefano. So we played a value game, and first you ask yourself which are the values which are important to you as a learner, as someone, as an individual. And then you ask what are the values which are important for your school or your organization or whatever context you are working in or functional in. And then most of the schools, I'm going to focus on schools, they choose safety, respect, and responsibility. So it's based around values. And based on these values, you formulate expected behavior. So what do you want to see in the classroom from your pupils? If you want respect, how does that look like? If you want responsibility, how does this look like in the classroom? If you want safety, how does this look like? So if you want to know more, of course I can give you more information, but in this short period of time, is values and expected behavior. And then you teach and practice this like any other subject in a school. You teach it, you model it, you practice it, and you reinforce it. So you catch them while they're good. Every time you see children or students behaving like the expected behavior, you give them a token, you reinforce them. So you build a reward system within your school. So this is a small joke. So anyone who can read this receives a sticker. So probably everybody can read this, so you will all receive a sticker. And for this system, for this reinforcement system, we are building augmented reality to teach and learn within the framework of PBIS. I hope this works. So I think Stefano already told, this is the Mirage XR system. So you see here the expected behavioral expectation for, I think it's respect. So you greet somebody. So we chose the character of an alien. So children can move around the alien because he's new to the world and he has to learn his good behavior or expected behavior. And the other one, I hope it works, yeah. So this is just a very short example how this is done with Mirage XR, where Stefano and Dorletta already talked about. So teachers can use this to build a behavioral expectation around a scenario. So we're developing and building the scenarios right now, and hopefully we're going to start next year in doing this. And they also told you about the authoring toolkit for teachers, so how to compose these behavioral scenarios for AR with Mirage XR. I hope this works. So you see here the authoring tool, you calibrate it first, and then you calibrate it first, and then the teacher can build within this authoring tool an AR animation to be used within the school. And these animations are used within a lesson plan. So at the moment, we are building these lesson plans and are going to use them. Yeah. So the company who has made the characters is an Italian company, so they designed the characters. So it's still difficult to do this. We tried to do this last week, but there is, and hopefully next year it will be more plug and play. Yeah, you see here the alien. It's still difficult to move it around, but hopefully in a few months it will work. And then we can use the modeling within a lesson plan. I hope you have seen a little bit about this. And my message to you is, so if you're working in education, please reinforce people. I know it's a difficult time now, and also around us. So 9/10 of education is encouragement. And yeah, again, if people do the expected behavior, please reinforce them and give them a compliment or a token or whatever. Be nice to each other. Thank you.
Thank you for your very interesting talk.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from the audience? You get a token if you ask a question. It's the expected behavior.
You get a sticker for me.
Yeah. Still not? She has very interesting stickers, yeah.
Well.
I think so. What do you expect that AR is going to add to teaching this kind of material or skills?
Very good question. Thank you for this. Yes. We're going to find out, hopefully, in the research. So in the next few months, we are doing the behavioral lessons without AR. And then next year, we're going to do the experiment with AR. So we're going to compare what the added value of AR is. And I think that it will be more immersive for children. So and then they can relate to the character and hopefully build a rapport. It's what we psychologists say, rapport with the character itself. And in this way, the AR can add via moving or controlling your behavior management as a child, and maybe also as a teacher, I hope. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No, then you only lost one token. So, okay, thank you.
He's next to me. So.
We are going to switch to an online environment. I hope that someone is going to help me out with that. Hi. We are already here. Tjerre, or how do you pronounce your name?
It's a Norwegian name, so it would be hard for anybody except Norwegian, but it's Tarja.
Again?
Tarja.
Yeah, we need an AR tool for that probably to practice. Yeah. You are in Norway. We are here in the Netherlands, so we are happy that we can join like this. Okay, I really can't pronounce your name. I'm sorry. is working in the is a middle school teacher, is working for several years now integrating VR technology in his own classroom, and will walk us through some things that he does within his education with VR. So the floor is yours, and enjoy.
Yeah, thank you. I'm actually here together with Kim Åberg. He's joining from Ireland next to us. We both work in Norwegian schools where we have been using virtual reality for about 2 years now. For me, it started about 2 years when we got a grant from a local bank to start our Rotterdam Future Learning Lab, which includes not just virtual reality, but also includes computer games, drones, green screens. We have a podcast studio, so we have different tools that we are been using. We've been using virtual reality with the Oculus Quest. So we bought about 28 Oculus Quest headset, which we have used extensively in our classroom. I teach English as a second language. I teach social science, geography, history, and physical education at the school. But we have been looking at virtual reality in various topics and subjects. So it's not just me that using it. We also have a bunch of other teachers using it. I've been using it in English as a second language, for example, for writing aids and prompts. I've been using games like Ghost Giants, where the students wrote different stories. They wrote the background stories of the people we met. I've been using it for visualizations, like we used Oculus TV, the 9/11 series, when we did the topic about 9/11. When we done civil rights, we've been playing the talking while traveling while black. So we've been used that extensively. We also been using programs like Engage, where we've been meeting students and experts from all over the world. When we did the civil rights movement, we met Black Lives activists from New Orleans that talked about what they were doing. We met students from Brazil, United States, Canada, Denmark, Sweden. We talked about various topics with them, and we're now trying to establish common ground where we, at least a couple of times a month, meeting students from all over the world where we discuss current events. We also been doing it in physical education. I'm working together with Kim now to use Space Pirates as a physical education tool where we compete against each other, because there's a lot of emphasis on more physical education in Norway. So we've been trying to enhance that, and some students don't like the regular physical educations. We're using virtual reality as a tool to make them more active. I'm also trying to make the students create more. So we've been using Escape or Unity to make escape rooms. And we're using Unity a lot in different various topics where the students are now creating things. I'd like to turn over to Kim now, because he's going to talk about how he's doing it in his classroom.
Yes, thank you, Taya. And I know that the stuff that you do in your classroom is exciting and it's great. So I'm just trying to keep up. I am a middle school, or I'm not a middle school, but elementary teacher. I teach 7th grade. And as Taya mentioned, I'm located, or there's a bridge separating us in the geography sense. So it's not too far, but still we do things a bit differently. Taya has also developed a future learning lab at this school. We have a room that is a learning lab, but it's built on the same ideas that the students need to be more active in their role as a student when they try to incorporate different subjects. So both me and Taya are looking for different ways to teach our kids, and in that search for new methods, we a couple of years ago we started looking into VR as it became more accessible with the Oculus Quest for both of us. So This is not something that every teacher in Norway does, but as a method, I think it's important to look into. So for us, it started with a project from Frame. It's called a VTS teaching method, which is a visual thinking strategies developed in New York, I think it is. So I got invited from a couple of people from Frame, and also a teacher that was located in Brooklyn, New York. So I took my students through a journey, and to explain a little bit about what VTS is. It's a teaching method where you use visual aids like an artwork. So for instance, they placed 4 different artworks in a virtual gallery that my students visited through Oculus Quest. The nice thing about Frame VR is that it's you don't have to own or be in possession of a VR headset. You can also use your browser. So this is something that is very accessible for our students to use, and we did use it on a Chromebook as well. So it's not something that you have to be a tech-savvy teacher to incorporate in your learning. So VTS method is actually just visualizing and having a discussion around the artwork that they see. So there are 3 questions that you ask the students, and then they use the visual aids to have a deeper understanding of how they interpret different things that they see. This was a great experience for us because where else can you? No school that I know of has an art gallery as one of the rooms. So this was a way for us to travel to New York without having to pay for the air ticket or the airplane ticket. That is an impossibility. So the students' feedback was that this was a great way to learn from each other in a safe environment. They also got to see artwork that are not accessible for them in any other way. So that was the starting point for me. As a teacher, I saw that while the students were immersed in the VR world, they also got a richer and deeper understanding of what they were participating. So they kind of got a better understanding of what they were involved in. And they also got time, so they didn't get distracted from anything from the outside world, which is also often a problem in classrooms, where you can engage some of the students in what you're teaching, but not everyone at the same time. And I think also that VR is a tool that allows you to keep the students focused on what they are learning. So that's also an important part of it. We went past the Frame VR and the VTS method, and then I was starting to think about how could the students produce VR content. And right now I have a couple of students that are working on producing their own VR, not art galleries, but rooms that the parents can come to school and see what they are working on. So for instance, we have a lot of projects that are written, and we have a lot of projects that are locked out of the parents' view. So because of COVID-19 and everything that's going on, the collaboration between the students and the parents are getting difficult. So to mend for this, we have created several virtual rooms. So we send them to the parents, and then the parents can walk like you do in the Laval world, which is great, by the way. Great place to hang. And they can walk around and see the student work. So this is something that I think is easy to produce. The fact that the students themselves are producing it is also very important for us to have an to kind of let them produce their own material so that they get the ownership of what they're doing in school. And it also since I have 1 minute left. It's not easy to incorporate everything in 5 minutes, but we also talk a lot about global empathy, and the things that we do in our classroom is always trying to let the students learn about different sides of the story. So that's why Taya is talking about the global partnerships that we do, and also the collaboration that we try to incorporate into our teaching. So that's a main part of what we try to make happen in our classrooms. And I see that Taya has raised his hand.
Just want to add one more last thing. That both me and Kim are struggling now with students because of COVID and with mental issues, and now looking at using virtuality as a tool to have students participate through virtuality, and also we're using virtuality tool to get more students involved in school and come to school. So we're going to be talking that one on Tuesday. So I think that was all from Norway and the Norwegian middle school.
I actually wonder, can you see us? Or are you
Yes.
just talking into a void? No, you can see us?
We can see you,
Oh,
yes.
okay, good. That makes our conversation a little bit easier, I think. Right. Hey, so you did, to summarize, you are experimenting with a lot of different ways to integrate virtual reality technology into your schools and into the school system. If you have to name one of the most successful things that you think that virtual reality, for also other teachers, virtual reality is really useful, this experiment was, I would recommend that to others to do that too.
For me, I think the one that the students gave the most positive feedback was traveling a while back when we did the civil rights movement, because this says it plays a lot with the emotion, that this really is something that sticks to the mind, that they remember it for a long time afterwards. So I think that the virtuality is really affecting their emotions, and it really, they get a better view on how it affected people when they did the traveling while black, where they actually could be sitting at the table listening to discussion with Trevor Martin's mother and other civil rights movement activists. So I think that they said that they understood it a lot better when we did that. So traveling while black, that's a really, really good example of how we can be using it in class.
Are there questions from the audience?
There is one question from the online chat
Okay.
that we are streaming. So Dr. Martina Cleary, she asks, getting students to self-build the spaces, how are you bringing their skills levels up across the group to enable this? Is that clear?
Can you repeat the question, because I didn't quite?
Yeah, sure.
Is the question if I use the expert builders to train other students, would that be answering the questions? Because I have the ones that are really doing this work in virtuality, they train other students. So I'm not a big expert of like Unity, but I have students that are good at this. They train other students. I'm not sure if that answered the questions, but
yeah, I think so.
I think also it's important to let the students in and take part of using the tools that we try to incorporate. So I think also trying to show the students that they can do it for themselves is a part of also a self-esteem issue, and also showing that students can possess other skills that they can use in different types of ways. So there's not mainly focus on reading skills, written skills. There are also different skill sets that you need to kind of produce VR, and often students like mine is only 12 years old, but it's amazing what they can do when they are given the chance. So I think that's an important mindset to take with you.
yeah, and also that we're giving them some skills that they might be useful for them later on, because I often feel that we're teaching them in schools things that they don't really understand when they will be using. I know that Unity, to learn Unity, that's something that might be useful for them later on if they were working in the field for virtual reality, for example.
Any any word back if it answered the question?
No, but there is another question
Okay.
from Viviana. How did the students adapt to this new way of learning? How was it in the beginning, introducing VR as a new learning tool?
Quickly. No, of course, the students, for me, it's a bit more time consuming than I think it is for Taya, because his students are a bit older, so they don't need too much explanation on what's going on. But at the same time, we don't need to underestimate our students. They are extremely tech savvy. They are also very quick in adapting new ways of teaching. So I think it's up to us as teachers to try and find the ways that are engaging the students a bit more than just using a textbook or the same old methods that we have always been using. And of course, for me and for Taya, which I know very well, our classrooms might not be representative to the Norwegian standard or European standard classrooms, where our students are used to being challenged at different methods of teaching. I think that's also a strength. So the students never know what they will have to learn.
Yeah, and I think that our biggest problem with the virtual reality was that when they're playing for about an hour or 2 hours, the nausea. That was one of some of the students complained about that one. But I always use other students as experts when we're doing the virtual reality. They explain if they were stuck inside the virtual reality, had other students helping them out. I think that's also an important aspect here, because what I've seen in the past is that it's always the same students that succeed. The one is really doing well in reading and writing. But now I have a lot of different students that are expert of various topics. I think that helps their motivation to come to school. So I think that's is a good thing too. And also, I like that virtual reality. It doesn't really bring like a fixed mindset. You don't have you can have different views on it and different solutions for it. It's not one correct solution for the task they're doing. So that's more up to the students too.
All right, thank you. I think we can discuss about this for forever. It's too bad that we have COVID for multiple reasons, but also because you are not here, because then you could join our panel a little bit easier. But thank you for your very interesting talk. I think it gave a good example and maybe also some inspiration for some people who are thinking about integrating this technology to their classroom. So thank you. We are going on with the last part of our program with the panel discussion. Please join me. If you like to join us too, it's fine. Yeah. Okay, so Stefano and Sueling, you already met. Wietse van Brugge is an innovator at Kennisnet. Maybe you can introduce yourself for a bit.
Right, I am Wietse van Brugge. I work at the Kennisnet Foundation. The Kennisnet Foundation is a foundation that is funded by the Dutch government. And we help schools in primary, secondary and vocational education with the use of technology. One side of Kennisnet is providing services like single sign-on services. And I work more in the advisory department of Kennisnet, in the technical innovation department. And this kind of technology is really on a lot of schools' minds at the moment.
Yes, thank you. All right. I want to invite you. If you have questions, please raise your hand, because that makes the discussion a little bit more interesting, I think. That also, when you're online, please, what you already noticed, when you add your question to the chat, it will also end up at this stage. And I already see that hand was raised, so maybe we start with a question.
Yes, my name is Pauline Arts. I do have a question about the project. Is there, you're using headsets, for example, to introduce VR. Is there also taken into account the privacy aspects, the aspects of the using these headsets? Because many data from the students is collected, maybe from rooms. I was wondering if you ask yourself this question as well.
I shall go. Does it work? Yeah. Yes, we take privacy into account when developing the project. We actually have one work package, which is just about ethics and takes care of all the GDPR related things. We are collecting data because we want to analyze this data and we want to know if what we are doing works. But all the data that we collect is in an anonymized form, and we have to pass through, we have a committee that checks that everything that we are doing is according to the GDPR law and supports ethics standards that are set by the European Union. So yeah, it's actually a big part of the project.
If I can add to this, I think this is an important aspect that maybe schools that are interested in this technology do not maybe always know what kind of data is collected. They see very cool applications, but this is an important question to ask also in this place, on the side of the applications that you're using, but also the platform that you're using. I heard a lot of times Oculus Quest. Well, I think it's very healthy for schools to evaluate which kind of tools they find acceptable, and if they, well, like any other technology that they use, they have to think about information privacy and security, and this is also happening in this space, and it's good to acknowledge that this is also a factor in this usage of this technology.
If I may add a couple of things, one of the reasons why it takes a lot of effort to get schools involved in these projects is because the parents, they are not willing to sign their sons and daughters in, because they know, what kind of data are you collecting about my sons and daughter? And we are working with AR, but especially with VR. I think that's a big problem because the standard tool is the Oculus Quest, right, which is owned by Facebook. So that's a big issue because you can register and you need to have a Facebook account for that, or you can buy the same Oculus Quest, same hardware, and you have to pay like double that in order not to use it with a Facebook account. So I understand that parents can be a bit doubting about signing in their children to do these kind of things if then all their data are sent to Facebook. So, but usually, as a research institution and university, we usually take serious care of these things.
Okay, so it's already about implementing. I see that there is also a question from online, but let's first, because a lot of questions that are raised, and also in the chat online, and also we started discussing that a little bit in the previous talk, is, so I want to start implementing this technology. How when schools are listening now, the teachers are listening now, what are, if they want to start, what are things that they have to take into account before they have to take into account the privacy, as you already heard? What are other things that they have to take into account if they want to start using this technology at their schools?
I think one of the things you have to look at is what exactly are you trying to improve, make more efficient? You have a specific problem that you cannot solve at this moment, and that's a good starting point, I think, before in thinking of could technology like this kind of technology provide a solution for this, or it can help. You always have to start there at what do you want to learn, and could this technology help to achieve that goal? That's the first question. But it's also enticing technology, so it's also interesting to look at what can technology offer and then see what kind of problem it could be used for. That's the first thing, I think. So
is it smart that we got some COVID money, we don't have teachers, so I have money left over. So I think as a school, well, I'm going to buy 60 headsets, I'm going to buy the Oculus Quest, and let's see what happens.
Well, yeah, it happens a lot.
Yes.
And it's in the closet and it's acquiring dust, so don't do this. And yeah, I know there's a lot of money now in Dutch schools, and I don't know about Spanish schools, but yeah, I agree with my colleague here. Don't use the technology just for the sake of technology. Use it because some educational goal is going to profit from it. So, and teachers need to be helped with it. Teachers I hope I'm not stepping on toes right now, but teachers really do not know how to use it. So you have to do it plug and play. And hopefully with our authoring toolkit we just talked about, we can make it so accessible for them that they just have to push some buttons and then hopefully a scenario, what in the project I'm leading, a scenario comes out. So and it sometimes overburdens them, the whole technology thing. So I think it should be like, it should be plug and play, just like water from the faucet. That's it.
Yeah, if I may add to that, I totally agree with what my colleague said, but the biggest problem I think is letting the teachers know that they need to solve a problem. Like the technology is engaging, it's nice, it's cool, the kids will love it, but you need a problem to solve. When we ran a workshop about the project and how to use it, the first question we asked is like, what do you want to show to your students? And the teachers that were participating were like, you tell me, and that's not what we are supposed to do. The teachers need to have something that we want to show. And starting from that, then you can create your own AR or VR experience.
So I get a lot of I see a lot of closets with Oculus Quest inside it, but they also didn't review if it's ethical to use them or if it's too heavy for a head of a little kid. So yeah, I totally agree. It's the most successful projects that you see is that there are some enthusiastic teachers probably that take the technology and have a clear goal what they want to reach with that. If I am a teacher that wants to motivate that in my school, and I set up a little project. How do we make sure that it that other teachers, because they are maybe less tech savvy, are there ways to make less tech savvy teachers that are maybe interested in it, but they have no clue where to start? Can we give them some advice to make that it doesn't stay only with Terje? Any thoughts about that?
There are lots. You'll always have people in your institution that are willing to champion this kind of technology, but they also have to try to engage the other teachers. And I think some teachers are a little technology adverse, or if you, oh wow, this cool technology, wow, and this other teacher might be totally looking at it differently. And I think, but you will find a common ground on if you can really show them that it's solving a real educational problem or an educational issue, or it helps to really teach something. And that's where you always find common ground. It's not the technology maybe, but it's always, what do you want to teach? Yeah.
Okay. Question from the audience.
Yeah, so there is one question about how many hours a day are you using the VR headsets? Are you using it in all the classes?
Can you say the first part of the question again?
How many hours a day are you using the VR headsets, and if you're using it in all the classes?
Well, I don't work at a school, but I think this is an interesting question because a lot of institutions are asking themselves this question that are using more and more of this technology. At what kind of level can you really use this technology as a replacement to replace another way of teaching it? You also have to take into account how many hours is acceptable for people to really use this technology. Like the example from our Norwegian colleagues, some students are more susceptible to the nauseating effect that can happen with VR. So this is, I think this is also an issue that we have to look at in terms of accessibility. If a lot of students in your class are not able to use this technology for a long time, you have to look at other ways to provide access, like, for example, through an iPad or a laptop or a tablet. What is a good amount of hours to use VR or AR technology? I am not sure. Maybe you guys know something from research.
I don't know anything from research, to be honest, but in our project, the AR experiences that we planned are not planned for long. It's just a few minutes per student, repeated across the course of a few weeks, but it's not a long session of more than 15 minutes per student. So we want to keep it separate from the whole day at school. It's a small moment where they experience this, and then they go on and do something else.
Yeah, I agree. You have to look at the variety during a day. So from a pedagogical didactical point of view, you need a variety of structures, so active structures, and VR, AR experience is one of them. So there are lots more, and you need to align these with, again, the educational goals of the day or the lesson itself.
And then it's a bit. I always tell people when they ask me, "What can I do with a VR headset?" It's kind of asking, "What can I do with a computer?" Right? It's a type of hardware, and placing people behind the computer, behind the screen, a little kid, it's also not a good idea probably to constantly let them watch TV. So the variety between in use of that hardware, I think it's also an educational way of looking at that hardware. It should be about the content, I think, and what can you do with that? And then, of course, make choices about the fact that certainly with VR, the screens are very close to your eyes, and there is some research done, especially about COVID times, that children are getting nearsighted because they are constantly looking at screens, that it's not even caused by VR. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't use the technology, I would say, but it might be that you disagree. But
Well, I think you raise an interesting point where, like kids during the COVID days were looking at screens all of the time. A lot of the teachers had a problem to really make a connection with their students or with the students with each other. And one of the interesting projects I came across the past few months was done by a vocational educational institution, Vista College, that are using something like the Laval virtual world, not as a way to really teach something experiential or something where you really do something, but as a replacement for a normal class where they taught a quite boring subject. But the goal was not to improve the learning, but to improve social cohesion. And that's also an interesting way to look at this kind of technology. Can it overcome some of the deficits of the kind of technology like Teams or Skype or whatever, Google Meet? That's an interesting way to look at this technology as well, I think.
Hi, Roger from Immersive. There's a lot of experience with Hi, Roger from Immersive. There's a lot of experience with small companies on usability and also in developing. If you're looking at applications for education, I agree, you need to have the goal in mind. And then you can see that you can often simplify that. We've done a number of applications for museums up to, or even training, coaching. I'm wondering, what is your experience with co-creation? And can that still improve? Or do we need more projects? Or is that something that you actually are not so positive about?
Yeah, actually that's a big issue. When we started the project, we were checking what was the landscape of AR, and there are many applications. There are a lot of research creating stuff and trying it at schools. The problem is it's not something that is repeatable because maybe the content is not shared or it has to be adapted from country to country. And that's a big problem because that means there's a lot of effort, but then it's applied only to a small subset of students or school and so on. So one of the goals of this project is actually to give a platform EU-wide where people can just upload their content and adapt it and modify it. But it takes a lot of effort. It's not just a technological effort. It's also an effort of dissemination. Let schools know that they can use that. Have teachers at school which are tech savvy and then can instruct other teachers to do that. And apart of what you said about co-creation, I think that's the key questions to solve. We want people to be able to collaborate in the creation of content and improve it and build it upon time. And I think right now we are not at that stage yet, and I think it will take a few years before we can reach anything like that, especially for AR and VR content. I think that now with video production and such, it's greatly simplified and technology is available to many teachers. You see teachers publishing content on YouTube and sharing slides and so on so that everybody can benefit from that. But for more immersive environment, we are a bit far away from that. We will need a few years before we can say that we reach a stage where we can share the content to everybody and make content available for a wide platform.
I think the collaboration and being able to share content is a big factor because the most successful VR, AR, XR projects that I have seen are the ones that are not done by one single institution, but are done by multiple institutions that have to teach the same thing and collaborate together and share the content with each other. And that's also a way to make it more sustainable and durable, because content that you develop now can not be usable technically in like 3 or 4 years. So it has to be constantly updated. And if you work together and create something that supports the durable usage of VR technologies, it would also be very helpful if you could openly share materials through open standards, so everyone can use it and not have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, it's an interesting question you raise again. And I think multi-stakeholder partnerships are very important. I've worked with many kinds of consortia, from private enterprises until public enterprises. And the real challenge is always that the different kinds of persons in charge of several kinds of work packages need to work together. So the people who are doing the technology and the people who are doing the content. So I'm a content person, a school person. Stefano is I think, a tech person. We do know each other, by the way. So it's always good to get to know each other. What are our strengths in our partnership? So what can we add to the partnership, and how can we validate the technology and also disseminate it, as my colleague just said? How can we disseminate it into the schools and make it more sustainable and durable? And then you need a party like, yes, how can we make this more accessible to the people who are interested in it? How can we reach the people that are important to use it? Maybe that's an important, but collaboration is always an important aspect in a multi-stakeholder partnership.
But advocate of the devil, first we started this discussion with saying, well, don't buy 30 headsets, put them in a closet and hope that someone can use it. You should have one enthusiastic teacher who likes to start using that technology. I can imagine now that there are people here in the audience thinking, well, I'm working at a school, I'm very enthusiastic using this hardware, but there's no point in start doing that because I don't have a consortium, I don't have multiple partnerships, I have no idea. So, yeah, what would you say to that teacher? Because, yeah, it's a bit contradicting in that sense.
Oh, go to Kennisnet, I would say.
Well, I think that, like our colleagues from Norway, they started using, from what I gathered, tools that are already available.
Yes.
And that's a good starting point, I think. It's always good to start first with what kind of problem am I trying to solve, or what do I want to teach, and look at what's out there and what could be used and applied to that is a good way to get a first inkling of it, if it works. And that can also help you to convince other people that it could be interesting, or could we find other people that have the same problem, because all the schools have to teach the same thing. So there are other people out there who would be interested and willing to help. And that's a good starting point. And then you could see, oh, could we use this tool, or would it be better if we had something different? And if you do that, you also get a clear idea of what that thing that you want is supposed to be. Yeah. So then you can formulate requirements. Yeah. That's, I think, a good starting point.
We have some question from the audience.
Yes. Hi, thank you for interesting presentation and discussion. My question is about mainly diversity aspect. As we all are different, the students are different as well. And then when it comes to neurodiversity and cognitive diversity and in the integration phase of this new tool to the system of education, from your point of view, what you have seen as a main challenge, for example, for students that they have dyslexia or autism or other ADHD or etc. Thank you.
Maybe I can answer, because actually Pilot 1 is actually about this kind of students, and the pilot was created with these students in mind. So the point is, every student can have different learning disabilities and how we can better help them. And we are collaborating with this SME in Ireland and one of the CEOs is actually a psychiatrist, which worked in the clinical sector as well, helping kids. And she was actually contributing to say how we should add content so that can really help those kind of children. That's one thing. And the other thing is that there are also diversity about the different geographical group of kids. Like the only actually personal data that we are collecting from students participating in the pilot is their nationality, because we are having the pilot 2 in 10 different countries, and we want to see how in the school curriculum or how these different group of children at school can learn differently. Like, for example, we developed something which is really effective for kids in the UK because the developers are from the UK, but this doesn't work for kids in Turkey or Croatia. And we want to know how to tweak the building of applications in the future based on this kind of data. It's not a solved issue at the moment, but we need to research more on the topic, I guess.
I have one more question here, if we can, or over here.
Hi, just one silly question. Do you think it's important to bring XR to LMS systems, to have a platform in a school to work with pupils on to establish projects and to have an overview what is happening and to see what each of them is doing? An LMS system, a learning management system like Moodle or something like this. Do you think it is important to bring XR into Moodle, for example?
That's what we are actually trying to achieve. We notice that many schools are already using LMS like Moodle, and we don't want to reinvent the wheel. So if Moodle is available, let's just put all our content there, and making it available is, I think it's the simplest way to go. We don't want to put burden on the teacher to learn a completely new system. If we can integrate into something that they already know, all the better. I think we have to, our role is to simplify the life of the teachers as much as we can.
Thank you. You want to reply?
Yeah, it's a good way to give access to content, but it's also could be a way to have the results or analytics from the tools that they're using as a point of return for the teacher to look at what the pupils have been doing in VR or AR or XR or whatever kind of two-letter acronym you want to use. That could also be a good way to use it, and I think it's quite normal to see it integrate in what schools are already using. So it should be a very logical step, I think.
Then one more question here.
Yeah, just a small question. I was just curious, how do you curate your content? Is there some kind of benchmark for you, what you are planning to implement in your content or something like that?
Yeah, so regarding the content, we have 2 SMEs which have been in the field of AR for a few years. So they actually tweaked what they already had and provide content for our pilots. And regarding the third pilot, the one about PBIS, we are developing content from scratch. I guess SVU and the CNR, the part in Italy, are collaborating with a company which is actually helping in creating all the 3D content and the experiences. But regarding that, maybe Suline can give more.
Thank you, Stefano. Yeah, we are working with the teachers themselves. So we have a teacher advisory group here in the Netherlands and also in Italy. So we are doing surveys, focus groups with teachers and students. So in this way, we hope we have the right content.
Okay, then I have also a question. Yesterday in the conference, the topic of safety, data safety, but also the diversity and in the content and also in the platforms is really important. And Stefano, you also mentioned that for some parents to write their children up to be a user of Oculus could be a threshold. Now, who do you think is responsible in this, or where's the responsibility for exposing children to this type of content or data sharing? Is it on the level of the school? Is it on the level of the country? Is it on the level of Europe? And what do you think we should do to be able to create a safe environment for our children?
That's a tough question. So I don't really know the answer. I think that there has to be some level at the EU or national level to provide laws which can give clear guidelines to follow. But then I think most of the responsibility comes to the schools, to the teachers, and especially the parents, because they are the ones that are most in touch with the kids, so they can talk to them and check what they are doing. So I think that's, well, I'm not a parent, so I shouldn't really say that. But I think people who are most in touch with the kids are the ones that can better control what they are doing. But on top of that, we need to have some actual laws to follow or guidelines that specify what is acceptable and what not.
I think this is on multiple levels, and everyone you named is involved with providing a secure space. A teacher, you can ask a lot of a teacher, but knowing everything about technical systems and data sharing and what's happening maybe should be done at another level at the school with someone who is really knowledgeable about that and can help the school guide them through that process. The teacher knows the best how to handle it with kids and use it there. And then you can, but the vendors, people that make stuff, also have a responsibility. And then you have a national level or a European level. So everyone in this world has a responsibility for this.
Yeah, and probably it's also about what you want to. If you are talking about change and we want to change Facebook, I think an individual teacher, he can try, but it's probably not his core business. So the different levels are different. They also have different responsibilities, probably, to actually evoke change also.
Yeah, maybe I can add to the discussion about the data protection. As Stefano already told you, we have standards for this, but it's also very important for a school who is using these kinds of technology that there's a difference between who is gathering the data, so the devices who are gathering the data, and the ones who are where it's installed, where the repository is. So my opinion is that it should always be within the school community and not go outside anyway. So it should be inside in their intranet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then you can control
yes,
it, right?
Yes, indeed. And there should be a data protection officer in each school foundation to do so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We are going to wrap up this session. I like to continue for forever, but we have an interesting session after this one. I want to remind you that there is an expo also on the first floor, so for everyone who's here. But for everyone who is here, just stick around because the next session is very interesting, and also go to the expo when we are not doing anything here. Thank you. Thank you. Very happy that you were here.
Diversity